accelerate extremely quickly as they try and break free of the Earth's gravity.
It's a fantastic image, isn't it?
There goes the booster.
There goes the boosters. You can see the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah.
Clouds? Those are just clouds we can see.
Yeah, what a ride. I mean, they've probably got far too much to do to enjoy the view at this point, but for the benefits of the rest of us, the cameras they put on board rockets these days are absolutely mesmerising.
They are. I heard Helen Sharman being interviewed, of course, the British astronaut this week, and she was saying that, that they were very busy when they were up there. She said you were often too busy to look out the window, and you always had to force yourself to stop and take in the view because it was just so extraordinary.
I think that's absolutely right. I remember Tim Peake talking about it as well for the same reason, that you really do need to pinch yourself, enjoy the ride.
And so now the boosters have come off. What happens now? What's the next stage?
So the next stage, it's a two-stage rocket, and the bottom stage will have burnt through an awful lot of propellant. And after that, of course, it's just dead weight. So they need to get rid of that. They'll jettison that. And then it's just what they call the Centaur second stage, which will then take it up to orbit itself. And that is really quite critical that it is able to make it into orbit. But again, the crew will have that option of bailing if they need to, if they do detect anything wrong. Now, they have adapted the rocket. There's an extra engine on board that second stage to help propel it for this slightly longer trajectory into space. And they've also made sure that the capsule isn't shrouded by any covering. So if they do need to hit the separation button, that they can do that extremely quickly. There's also a computer on board that is monitoring every system on the rocket, and again can flag up any problems before any human could detect them.
So if you're just joining us, we're just looking at these remarkable live images from Boeing's Starliner. Boeing have launched their first crewed mission into space on the Starliner. It's set off from Florida. It is bound for the International Space Station. It has two crew on board, Butch, Wilmore and Suni Williams. This is not live images. This is a graphic. Yeah, well, I think we're now going back looking at historical images, but we're going to be bringing you lots more on this and the rest of the day's news. The launch as it happens here on Sky News.
And liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V.
Into orbit. They saw that jettison as planned.
Staging was good. You have good control.
And now the second stage's two Centaur engines have ignited to continue pushing Starliner into space, fueled by liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. The next milestone that we'll be watching for is the aeroskirt jettison.
Starliner, you had good booster performance. You're up to plus 31.
Plus 31.
Atlas Control reporting booster performance offset of 31 seconds of ISP, or specific impulse, relative to its design baseline of around 450.
All continuing to perform well, almost 7 minutes into today's flight.
Good Centaur.
Good Centaur.
Capcom Joshua Kutrick. Continuing to pass good news up to Starliner's crew. That last one reporting that the Centaur upper stage remains in good condition and is performing well, pushing them into orbit.
St. John's open.
St. John's.
Starliner is now entering its first guided abort range, where Starliner would direct itself towards a specific location in the event of abort. In this case, just off the coast of St. John's, the capital of the Canadian province of Newfoundland Labrador.
Starliner MECO converged 11:5 to 11:52. Good perf, you're at 34 to 36 seconds.
11:52. 34 seconds.
That call letting the crew know that the main engine cutoff, MECO, should happen just about on time, about 12 minutes into today's flight. Another good indication that Starliner's Ascent is taking along exactly as expected. Main engine cutoff is a major milestone marking Starliner's arrival on orbit. Still got about 2.5 minutes until we get to that, with the spacecraft continuing to perform well, make its way towards orbit.
No action, Starliner, on the LCL. That's just the system coming up into controlling mode.
Outstanding. No.
Once the main engine is cut off, the next step will be the launch vehicle separation. That's set to occur just short of 15 minutes after launch, when Starliner will separate from the rocket and fly free in space for the first time. Flight Dynamics officer reporting that at this point, Starliner could potentially make an abort
Starliner,
landing
yep,
off
good
the coast of
cooling.
Ireland.
Good cooling.
And they're, again, all continuing well, so we're not expecting to need that abort.
As Starliner is rapidly approaching orbital velocity, this abort region is only available for just over 1 minute, where Starliner would just continue up to orbit after that.
We all copy all, and really appreciate the words.
And Houston Starliner, we are on the tablets and in insertion monitor.
Copy tablets, we're with you, insertion monitor.
So the crew have their tablets out, so no longer using the paper procedures now that the vehicle has stopped moving so quickly. So there's a handful of things that the crew's going to do now, mostly just prepare the inside of the cockpit so they are looking at the right data to prepare for the upcoming orbital insertion burn. The vehicle itself has done a few things recently. Started to power on the solar arrays on the back of Starliner and turning off several of the thrusters that are no longer needed at this phase of flight. Upcoming in about 4 minutes, Starliner is going to start to orient itself in the direction it needs to do the orbital insertion burn. And the crew inside the vehicle will be turning the wireless access point on and allow them to stream some of the data from the spacecraft onto their procedure tablets.
And Houston Starliner, last arm is off. Backup control switches, enable 1 on, enable 2 off. SM RCS is the mode.
We copy off. Enable 1 is on, enable 2 is off. SM RCS, you're in a good config.
Good config.
Your EXDV targets are on board and good.
Good EXTV.
Things will be pretty quiet as Starliner gets into position for the orbital insertion burn. That's still about 10 minutes away. Starliner is actually designed to be pretty autonomous and, in fact, docked with the space station on its last trip around without the help of any crew on board. But we do still want to know that if needed, Butch, Wilmore, and Suni Williams could take control and manually abort the spacecraft's approach to the station if they needed to. So to prove that, one of the few things on their agenda after they reach orbit will be to perform a test of the manual piloting mode.
This test will involve first pointing Starliner's nose towards the Earth so that its communication antenna on the back of the service module is pointed at the satellites, the teeter satellites that allow it to communicate with the team on the ground. They'll then move Starliner so that its solar arrays are pointed at the sun, showing they could charge Starliner's internal batteries as needed. And they'll follow that up with a demonstration of the star trackers, one of the ways that Starliner determines where it is in space, pointing Starliner away from Earth so that the system, the Vesta system, can get a good look at the stars.
The next step will be for the crew to manually speed Starliner up and then slow back down, which will slightly raise and then lower their orbit and prove that they can manually break away from the orbit that the space station is in if they needed to. At that point, they can move on to the last
Starliner,
items of the
still no
test.
action on your cabin temp. You're in a good config. It's 74 degrees in there. Yeah, and that's just due to that T2 sensor sitting beside the light. So we're actually going to inhibit that particular sensor. We'll let you know when we bring it back online.
Okay, great. Looks like we're on our way to thrust align.
Concur.
Josh Gutrick calling up that the crew can ignore some alarms they're seeing on the temperatures inside Starliner. That's just a result of one of the sensors being next to a light that's causing it to show higher than it actually is, but it sounds like the crew are pretty comfortable and are getting into place for that orbital insertion. As I was saying, after they have manually broken away from the orbit of, proven that they can manually break away from the orbit of the space station, they are going to move on to the last items of their test for tonight. That's manually moving Starliner into the right orientation for re-entering the atmosphere, and then moving back into the attitude that will let them soak up some sun with the solar arrays and try a different method of manually charging the spacecraft's batteries. But again, once that all has to wait until after the orbital insertion burn. This is, again, the first of several burns that will put Starliner on its way to the International Space Station. We've still got about 6.5 minutes until we fire up the engines for that burn.
Starliner, we did not see the hand controller deflection. Just wanted to know if you did that yet.
No, we'll get it now.
All good.
Team here on the ground seeing that everything is looking like it's in the right configuration for the orbital insertion burn. Now less than 5 minutes away. Starliner is currently about 102 miles above the Mediterranean Sea, heading southeast over India in the next few minutes.
Starliner, good config for the OI burn.
Good config for OI.
And good config from the OI burn. Crew and ground controllers noting that Starliner is pointed in the direction it needs to for the OI burn. It should also be about the time that the crew are using their tablets for their procedures, also charging them, keeping them topped up for the rest of the rendezvous.
We unfortunately won't have a view of Williams and Wilmore as they work through this procedure. Although we had a view of them from inside the cabin on the ground, Starliner isn't able to send that view to us again until it gets to the International Space Station. So you'll be seeing this screen quite a bit as Starliner was getting into the right position for the burn. And actually just now you can see some of the engines firing that help it steer and move around in space. And you can also see what attitude it's in at any given time. Lots of good information on this screen.
It is. A lot of this information actually directly mimics the views that the crew is seeing, especially the one in the upper left-hand panel. That is an exact copy of the display the crew is using for their attitude directional indicator. It also covers what mode their translational hand controller and the translational pointing is in, On the left side, on the right side, the pointing guidance, which tells the Starliner in automated mode which direction to point, or when in manual mode, which direction the crew needs to move the vehicle, like we're going to do in some of the manual piloting maneuvers. And following back up a little bit on the camera conversation, there is a planned upgrade of the Mustang system that we should see on our PCM-1 mission that will include live feeds from inside the cockpit.
And the Mustang system is the cameras that we were seeing views from earlier.
That's correct. There's a handful of cameras around the inside of Starliner. We often see the one from kind of beneath Butch and Suni. That's given one of the better views without being directly right in their face while they're inside the cockpit during pre-launch. But once they're in orbit, they've gotten out of their seats a little bit, and we should be able to see a little bit more around the cabin.
We will, though, as you've already heard, continue to hear regular audio updates from the crew. Everything going well now that Starliner is just under 30 minutes into today's flight. We've got about a minute and a half left to go into that orbital insertion burn. That will be kind of the final end cap, really, to today's ascent, which again took place at 10:52 a.m. Eastern when Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams launched inside the first Starliner to carry crew members on board from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Launch Pad 41. They made it to orbit about 14 minutes later, and now we are just again waiting for this first of a series of burns that will set Starliner on its way to a rendezvous with the International Space Station that is scheduled to take place at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, 11:15 a.m. Central tomorrow.
And we're coming up at about 40 seconds till the orbital insertion burn. This burn is going to take Starliner out of its slightly suborbital trajectory and push it up to an altitude that will allow us to catch up with ISS for a rendezvous later tomorrow.
"15 seconds left to go, and once again, you'll be able to see those engines firing on this digital screen here that show when the burn has started."
2 seconds. And flight controllers here in Houston, seeing 4 good OMACs, good burn.
We take a look. That was a good OI burn. You're maneuvering to NavCal 1.
Good eye burn, going to NavCal 1.
And with that call up, both crew and flight controllers agreeing that that was a good OI burn. I'm looking at the trajectory plot here in Mission Control. I see our trajectory pointing us directly up to the altitude we need to go to for the next burn. Right now, Starliner is moving into NavCal mode, or NavCal attitude. That's going to be the first of several positions that Starliner, directions that Starliner points itself to track some of the stars from the Starliner and update the position inside of the position orientation of Starliner inside of its guidance, navigation, and control algorithms.
And of course, you're seeing lots of happy faces and cheers here there in Florida. Everybody glad to see Starliner safely in orbit with Butch, Wilmore, and Suni Williams in tow, sending it on its way to the International Space Station for docking tomorrow at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Once again, Starliner safely on orbit, has conducted a good orbital insertion burn, and is on its way.
Starliner, Houston.
Go ahead, Starliner, Houston.
Yeah, you do have good cooling. The sublimator is working. We are watching it, though, because the water usage is just a little more than we thought we were going to see. You probably noticed that. It's a reason for the advisory there. From the ground, we'd like to swap you over to the other leg. So we're going to close sublimator leg 1, wait for about 60 seconds, and then open up leg 2. You'll see us do that. No impact or action.
Okay, we copy. We'll be watching. Thank you.
Joshua Kutrick there again, giving the crew some words about information they're seeing on orbit. This one related to sublimators, which are used to cool the spacecraft down. But just letting them know that there's nothing that they need to be concerned about. The team will keep watching that. In the meantime, as Starliner begins making its way to the International Space Station, we're going to check in with Rob Navius in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Rob?
Yeah, thanks very much, Brandy. With Starliner en route to the station, the work now just beginning for Wilmore and Williams. First up, an important rendezvous burn called the NC burn, which will adjust Starliner's altitude relative to the station and begin to refine its path to the orbital laboratory. Flight Dynamics will be assessing the accuracy of Starliner's initial trajectory and will update any adjustments to that trajectory for subsequent maneuvers to be conducted over the next 24 hours. Now, we're expecting to hear the first of 3 audio reports from the crew during their free flight on how the ride uphill to orbit was before they move into what are called far-field demonstrations of the vehicle. That will include manual piloting tasks and a manual translation control test. That will prove Starliner's ability to execute a manual docking if required, as well as an abort capability prior to docking. Keep in mind, we're providing continuous coverage now of Starliner's flight to the International Space Station. On Thursday morning, rendezvous operations will begin in earnest shortly before 10 a.m. Eastern Time, leading to a targeted docking for Starliner to the station at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. So please stay with us around the clock as we bring you every minute of Starliner's flight. For now, we're going to sign off from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Houston and go back to Megan, Dee, and Mike Fink at the Cape.
Hey, and welcome back to the Space Coast of Florida, where about 36 minutes ago we witnessed the launch of a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket carrying the first 2 astronauts, NASA's Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, inside Boeing's Starliner capsule to the International Space Station. The first time ever, Starliner now in the right orbit to rendezvous with the space station in just over 25 hours. How are you guys feeling? How was it to watch launch? Again, just right over the water behind us here.
I mean, this is extremely exciting, obviously a long time coming and a culmination of so much hard work by so many teams. But of course, we're going to be even happier when we see Starliner dock, and even happier when the hatch opens and we watch Suni and Butch float into the International Space Station.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well said, Dee. I mean, this is exciting. We've built up to this moment for years and years, and it finally happened. I got to see a Starliner launch with my friends on board. How cool is that? And I could feel like the whole planet was cheering for them.
Yeah, it was really nice to see it happen. There were a lot of emotions here at the host desk among the three of us, as well as the crew that's supporting us here on the host desk. And it's just a history-making launch. Suni, again, the first woman to test an orbital spacecraft. That's amazing. And then again, the last time people flew to space in an Atlas-class rocket, 61 years ago. CFT, this final test to certify Starliner, and then once in orbit, the first time in NASA history that the agency will have 3 different crew spacecraft operating in space simultaneously. So that's the International Space Station, SpaceX's Crew Dragon, and again, once Boeing Starliner spacecraft gets there, Boeing Starliner spacecraft. So really just like a lot to celebrate. It's amazing. You know, Mike, I know you've been part of Starliner's journey from the very beginning, working alongside Butch and Suni and all the teams across Boeing, NASA, ULA. So talk to us. How does it feel to see this rocket from your perspective?
I was so impressed all the way through the launch countdown and all the way through orbital insertion burn. Everything was just like the final simulation exercise they give us back at Johnson Space Center, where they just give us everything nominal. And there we are. Everything was fine. No hiccups, no drama, nothing to worry about. And so I was really happy with Butch and Suni, and for Butch and Suni, and happy with the whole team. As Butch said, thank you to the United Launch Alliance for a great ride up, and welcome them to the club of rocket companies that can send humans into space. Now we just got to get to space station in 24-ish hours.
That want to discuss, let me know if you're there.
And we've been asking for some questions on social media, so we still want to get to those because there have been a lot. So why don't we pull up one question here right now? This one's from Ramon. What is your favorite part of being an astronaut, Mike? Is it days like this?
Definitely days like this, Ramon. Very much glad to be an astronaut on this day. I think Butch and Suni might be a little bit happier than me to be an astronaut today, but this is definitely a great day. And if you're not on the rocket yourself, helping your friends is a really great way to be an astronaut.
And so, Mike, talk to us about, this is, again, a crewed flight test. Certification is what's next for Starliner. So what's the process to get us to your flight next year?
Well, first we have to, Butch and Suni, they've gotten to orbit. That's kind of step one. Now they got to get to the space station and complete their flight test objectives. Once they land safely in a desert somewhere with the airbags, and we'll analyze. The Boeing team will analyze the flight test data, see if any improvements, any changes, any things that can be improved and made, and then we'll get ready for us at the post-certification mission number 1 that we call Starliner 1. I think Dragon had a similar one. They called themselves Crew 1. Well, we're Starliner 1, and we'll be ready to fly when the spacecraft is.
Right. And so obviously there's still a lot on this road for Starliner, but when you do fly next year on Starliner 1, Mike, I know that there's a bunch of people here who are very excited for you, so much so that they created this shirt.
Oh, no.
I love it.
Mike Fink Fan Club. That's right. Oh, he's hiding, guys. He's hiding behind his computer right now.
I am deeply humbled. Thank you.
No, yes. It just goes to show that so many people are invested in Boeing and NASA and ULA working together on the Starliner program. So we celebrated together with the crewed flight test today and launch. And again, we still have so much more of the mission to go, and we can't wait for your flight for Starliner 1. Alrighty.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again to everyone who submitted questions throughout the broadcast. You really helped to contribute to the broadcast. And Mike, really great to have you here marking this historic launch with us.
It's great to be on the team, and you guys are both are extreme professionals, as well as our production team and the PAO team that's right up the hill from us. Great job, everyone.
Absolutely, and today's liftoff could not have happened without the many teams across the country supporting this launch, which of course is just the first of many critical milestones for this flight test.
Yeah, that's right, Dee. So our coverage tonight, or today, won't end here. First up, we have a post-launch news conference starting at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here on NASA TV, followed by continuous coverage of Butch and Suni's transit to the International Space Station. Starliner is on course to dock at the station in just over 25 hours from now, and then the ISS crew will welcome them on board. Again, we will take all of that live on NASA TV, NASA Plus, and our social media channels.
And their journey will provide the data needed to bring Boeing closer to having the continuous privilege of carrying astronauts to and from the space station.
Hey, and that's the perfect opportunity, right, to pull up this QR code we have ready for you. If you scan it, it'll take you to go.nasa.gov/CFT, where you will find everything you'd want to know about this crew flight test and also NASA's Commercial Crew Program, which is why we're flying today.
Mike, it's been great to have you with us. Your insight today was important and invaluable.
Thank you very much, and the Boeing company should get a big pat on the back today for a job well done so far.
Yes, again, congratulations to all the team. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Mike. We really appreciate your time here on the official launch broadcast of NASA's Boeing crew flight tests. And that's going to do it for us here on the Space Coast of Florida. For Boeing, ULA, and NASA, thank you so much for watching our official broadcast of this historic crew flight test. We leave you now with a replay of launch. Have a spectacular day. Here are the astronauts, Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Suni Williams, as you can see, suiting up for their mission into the history books.
This is a tradition. The whole idea here is to lose to the chief.
Out of the suit-up room, Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Suni Williams walking to an elevator at the end of the hallway. Our CFT crew taking their first steps outside, now en route to Launch Pad 41.
Crew transport vehicle is into the pad.
Butch and Suni arriving on level 12.
Last look at planet Earth for a while, saying hi to us. Hi, Suni.
Butch getting in there.
Gotten strapped into their seats here.
Hatch closure complete. Roger.
3, 2, 1, ignition.
And liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V, carrying 2 American heroes, drawing a line to the stars for all of us.
Commander Butch Wilmore, they're calling down to mission control here in Houston that the spacecraft has begun rolling into the right attitude for its ascent, and guidance navigation and control officer here in the room seeing good data on that.
Houston, Matt 2.
Go ahead, sir. You're back with Mission Control Houston, coming to you from Johnson Space Center. Team here in Mission Control continuing to watch over the Starliner systems. They have been continuing to watch the sublimator issue that we mentioned just before we went back to Kennedy Space Center there for an update. Those sublimators are used to cool the vehicle down before the vehicle uses its radiators for cooling. It is running out of water a little more quickly than it was expected to, but the radiators will be able to take over the cooling of Starliner just in the next few minutes. So we'll keep an eye on that, but it should not be a problem for today's flight. Another update that we got while we were getting those final words from Kennedy Space Center was that the team here on the ground is getting good data from the Vesta system. That is a key system on board Starliner. It stands for Vision-Based Electro-Optical Sensory Tracking Assembly, which is a long name because it's very important.
So that system actually does many things for Starliner. It's a combination star tracker. It's also the cameras that look at station and tell the Starliner flight control system exactly where it is and which direction it is pointed relative to space station. So the spacecraft autopilot itself will use that information during docking for automated dockings, and the crew can see those cameras while they're doing their manual docking should they need it.
So you'll be hearing a lot about the Vestas over the next 24 hours as Starliner makes its way to the space station. That is a key part of the systems that we'll be checking out along the way and then using for the actual docking.
Yes, and that system is made up of 6 cameras. It's got it's a dual redundant system, so there's 2 copies of each. There's 2 regular spectrum cameras that similar to what the human eye can see. One for a narrow field of view for looking longer distance, one for a wide field of view for shorter distances. There's also an infrared camera that can help Starliner see station while it's in the dark. It also has a laser-based LiDAR rangefinder that can also pick out the structure on station and kind of paint a 3D view of station inside of the flight computer. So that gets tied in with the rest of the data to help Starliner know exactly where it is relative to station.
So
Starliner's finishing up its third of 3 navigation calibration maneuvers. The next things coming up are enabling some of the
good rad flow. I'm not sure if they made a notice, but there was a few warnings pop up. Those were associated with the radiators coming online. We're still watching it, but good rad flow. No action.
Yep, good rad flow. We did see him in no action. We figured that. Thanks.
And those radiators, that was one of the items I was going to say is coming up soon. Starliner turns on the radiator system based on what the current temperature is, based a little bit on solar activity and the heating it got during Ascent. So now that system's on, cooling Starliner, we are looking towards getting Starliner pointed in the direction for the next upcoming burn, which is the NC burn, or the phasing burn, where that C means catch-up. During that phasing maneuver, Starliner is going to stay in a slightly elliptical orbit but at a lower altitude than station. And it's going to use that time to catch up with station, and then we'll later move up to station's altitude for final rendezvous and docking.
View you're seeing here is of the flight control team in Mission Control Houston. In the center of the view there is Mike Lammers, the lead flight director for this mission. Next to him, Rick Hempling, and on his other side, Joshua Kutrick, the day's Capcom that you've been hearing talk with the crew. You saw Lammers there pointing around the room as he was going through a go-no-go call for moving into orbit ops, the next mode that Starliner will be working in, having finished its ascent and its orbital insertion burn.
Starliner, you have good cooling and your go for orbit ops.
Outstanding. Good cooling, go for orbit ops. And with that, we have another message we'd like you to relay.
Everyone is listening. Go ahead.
Yeah, if y'all could call Kennedy Space Center crew quarters and strongly request that they release Joe Acaba and James Branson from quarantine. I'm sure they would appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a call. I'm not sure Joe's going to want to leave, but we'll pass it along.
You may be right. He said a lot of free bacon.
Sounds good.
You heard there that go for orbit ops that was communicated up to the crew that we were talking about just a moment ago. And also, of course, Butch Wilmore calling down that the chief astronaut, Joe Acaba, can be released from quarantine. Butch and Suni went into quarantine April 22nd, so they had a bit of a longer than expected quarantine as they waited for today's launch, but they are safely in space. So now that those who have been in close contact with them and needed to preserve their own quarantine to make sure that no germs were sent up to the International Space Station can also end their quarantine.
And Houston, are you ready for PCS activation?
We're ready. Here go for PCS activation.
Here we go. And Houston, I burped the PPM suit open via step 1.14 3 times. It keeps cycling back above up to 152.
Okay, we copy all, and the word is that you can just hold there and move on. It's a good value.
Okay, we'll go with that. All right, we'll call the PCS system act complete for my steps. Let me know if, check me, make sure I didn't miss it.
We're checking. Starliner, your PCS activation looks good.
Outstanding.
For those just joining us, or for those who've been watching since launch, Starliner is doing the last bit of coast before it gets to the NC burn, or the phasing burn. We've got about a little over 9 minutes till we get to that burn. In the meantime, Starliner is currently in the process of turning back on its OMAC engines, or its orbital maneuvering and control jets. Those are the larger thrusters that will push Starliner for large burns, large trajectory changes on orbit.
And Houston, the hatch locking device is installed.
We copy. Hatch locking device installed. Thanks.
And Starliner is finishing its pointing maneuver to get into the NC thrust line orientation. That is getting Starliner pointed in the correct orientation to perform the NC burn.
Step 9, com check, air to ground.
Step 9, com check. Houston has you loud and clear.
I read you the same. We're set up via the table.
Roger. Starliner, good config for the NC burn.
Good config for NC. Houston, Starliner, com check on the handheld mic.
Houston has you loud and clear, handheld mic.
Give me another 5 count there, Houston.
This is Houston, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we have you loud and clear, handheld.
Yeah, we're just checking the volume on the speaker. Thanks.
Copy.
And you just heard some back and forth there between Mission Control and Butch Wilmore. The crew switched off of using their headsets. That way they don't have to stay wired into the console the whole time and wear those headsets. They've switched over to the speaker and handheld mic inside Starliner for any communication they need to do down to the ground. We're now coming up on about 3 minutes till the NC phasing burn. We're coming up on 2 minutes till Starliner's NC burn. Starliner is currently pointed forwards in the direction that it's traveling. It's going to fire its thrusters, increasing the altitude of the other side of its orbit. So right now, Starliner did its orbital insertion burn to raise its altitude. Now it needs to raise the other side of its elliptical orbit. We're expecting that NC burn to be about 25 seconds long. And 30 seconds till the expected NC burn. And NC burn is starting for good OMAC burn. Engine burns.
Good NC burn.
Good NC.
Hey, firm, you're on your way to tail sun, step 12.
We see it.
And that call up from Capcom Joshua Kutrick to the crew. And Butch responding, he sees the same data. Starliner had a successful NC burn. Starliner's orbit is now a slightly elliptical orbit, varying between 324.7 kilometers and 323.6 kilometers. In the meantime, while Starliner waits for its next burn, coming up, the NHPC-1 burn, which is 20 hours and 42 minutes away. Starliner is moving itself into a tail-to-sun mode, so it's going to point its solar rays back at the sun and just use it to kind of top up the batteries while Starliner continues its phasing catch-up maneuver with ISS. With this first section of downtime that the crew's going to have, they're going to be using this time to get out of their suits. Should take a few minutes per crew member, but in the meantime, Starliner is also starting to open up its NDS NASA docking system entry cover. That should stay open for a majority of the flight. That way, Starliner will be ready for docking. And flight control is here in Houston, noting they see the entry cover open. We're getting that telemetry data and showing it on our virtual external display of Starliner.
Starliner, your entry cover is open and complete. You also have a good ADF cal, and we're with you moving over to rendezvous monitor.
Yep, just about to do that ourselves. Here we go. Rendezvous monitor.
And crew acknowledging, they also see NDS cover open. Also noted getting called up is good ADS cal for attitude determination system. Now that Starliner has moved into a different orientation, just confirming that its internal calculation of its position and orientation agrees with what crew's seeing on the ground.
Good morning. I'm NASA's Sandra Jones, and I am joined by Jim May from Boeing, and we are going to continue to bring you live coverage of the in-flight portion, the phasing portion of Starliner's mission to the International Space Station. If you're just joining us, Wilmore and Williams launched at 9:52 a.m. Central Time this morning today from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The duo did lift off on the Atlas V rocket and are slated to dock to the International Space Station's forward port of the Harmony module just a little less than 24 hours from now, targeting that docking at 11:15 a.m. Central Time tomorrow, June 6th. Following docking, the crew will complete hatch opening operations, targeting that hatch opening around 1 p.m. Central Time tomorrow afternoon, and welcome remarks to follow around 1:20 p.m. Central. At this time, Wilmore and Williams are awake and have a busy few hours ahead of them. First up was the NC burn, which took place just a short time ago and was successful. This burn helps get Starliner in the proper trajectory in preparation for tomorrow's docking. Next up, the crew will begin to prepare for their first PAO, or Public Affairs Office Mustang event. This is the first opportunity for the crew to provide remarks on the mission thus far and their flight into orbit. Following this, the CFT crew will also conduct some far-field piloting checkouts and provide feedback to the teams on the ground on those checkouts. We will discuss these piloting checkouts a bit more here shortly as we approach them. Following this, the crew will complete data collection on Vesta, or the Vision-Based Electro-Optical Sensor Tracking Assembly. This is essentially a vision-based system which helps with tracking and docking, of course, for Starliner. The crew will also complete other tasks and checkouts, do a little cleanup, all before completing a medical conference and getting some rest. So as you can see, quite a busy few hours ahead for the crew. Because this is a test flight, there are multiple checkouts and tests that occur as part of the eventual certification process of Starliner. And coming up here in just a few minutes at 11:30 a.m. Central Time, we will have the opportunity to hear from managers at both NASA and Boeing and United Launch Alliance about today's successful launch of Butch and Suni. You can tune in and listen into that news conference on the NASA TV channel or the nasa.gov website. We will be splitting our channels, so we'll have a media-only loop that will be provided as audio-only coverage. We are continuing to cover every step of the way along this mission until we do dock, but we will be splitting those channels out in order to broadcast the post-launch news conference.
Roger, tranquility. We copy you on the ground.
New possibilities are opening up for scientific cooperation between countries.
2, 1, 0. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Discovery, go and throttle up.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.
Thanks to you and to everybody in the shuttle program. The crew is go for launch.
Roger, nice to be in orbit.
We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
Good afternoon, and welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Antonia Jaramillo, and you are watching the post-launch news conference of NASA's and Boeing's crew flight test mission. At 10:52 a.m. Eastern Time today, NASA astronauts Butch, Wilmore, and Suni Williams launched aboard Boeing's Starliner spacecraft and United Launch Alliance's Atlas V rocket from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Launch Complex 41. Butch and Suni are now on their way to the International Space Station, and joining us in the room today to speak more about this mission and next steps are NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, Ken Bowersox, Associate Administrator for NASA Space Operations Mission Directorate, Steve Stitch, Manager for NASA's Commercial Crew Program, Joel Montalbano, Deputy Associate Administrator for NASA Space Operations Mission Directorate, Mark Nappy, Vice President and Program Manager for Commercial Crew Program at Boeing, and Tori Bruno, President and CEO of United Launch Alliance. This group of experts will be taking questions here in the room and also over the phone, but before we jump to the question and answer portion, each of our panelists will say a few opening remarks. We'll begin with Administrator Nelson.
Thanks so much. The first time that a human was launched into orbit on an American rocket was an Atlas V. And the Atlas continued throughout the Mercury program. And now, here, all these years later, we've got a crew going to the station on an Atlas V. It's also interesting that this is the 6th human-rated spacecraft, American. And you think back, there was first Mercury, then Gemini, then Apollo, then the Space Shuttle, then Dragon. Now we have the Boeing Starliner. And next year, we should have our 7th human-rated spacecraft when the crew of Artemis II will launch and circle the moon. So this is another milestone in this extraordinary history of NASA. And I want to give my personal congratulations to the whole team that went through a lot of trial and tribulation, but they had perseverance. And that's what we do at NASA. We don't launch until it's right. And so for Boeing and the ULA teams, the NASA teams, congratulations to all of you. Now, Butch and Suni do what they do best. They're test pilots. And they're going to test this thing from izzard to gizzard. And they're going to certify it for a rotational basis to send crew to the International Space Station. So now with Dragon and Starliner, the U.S. is going to have 2 unique human space transportation systems. And that, of course, we always like to have a backup. That makes it safer for our astronauts. And that's why we started the commercial crew program in the first place, partnering with U.S. companies to deliver safe and reliable spaceflight at the same time of cutting the cost. So it's different from the old days, but we go with our commercial partners now. And when we expand our fleet of spacecraft, what we're doing is expanding our reach to the stars. And that will be true of the Artemis program as well, where you will have 2 landers that will be available to the NASA crews to go down to the surface of the moon. So this is a special moment. It's another one of those great markers in history. And it is a program that what NASA does is hard. Space flight is hard, but it's worth doing. So my congratulations to the team, and do you want me to turn it back to you or turn it over to Sox?
We can go ahead and hand it
Ken
over.
Bauer, Sox, our Associate Administrator.
Thank you, sir. Great words. It's great to be here with you today. Thanks to all of you for being here with us. Thanks for hanging in there with us as we've worked a few issues over the past few weeks. I know it's really easy to lose patience as you're waiting for launches to happen. But as I said before, good things are worth waiting for, and I hope you agree with me that today's launch was definitely worth waiting for. It was beautiful. It was great to see the smiles on Butch and Suni's face as they were getting close in the count and hearing their voices after they were safely on orbit. It was also really impressive to watch the NASA, Boeing, and ULA team as they work through the issues over the last few weeks. It's easy to get impatient. It's easy to get tired. I was so impressed with the professionalism of the whole team and the way they kept their priorities in the proper order and made sure that we were really ready to go today. There's a lot ahead of us. The crew has a lot of test flight objectives. We need to get them to station. We have some work there at station, and then we have the return. And there are a lot of different things that the program will be working through as they go through each of those phases, and they'll talk more about that. But I'm really looking forward to seeing 2 U.S. vehicles at the International Space Station. I know Butch and Suni will probably get a kick out of that if they get a chance to look out the windows and see a Dragon there, see a Starliner there. It's something that I think all of us should be proud of and that I'm personally looking forward to. We've got a prescribed landing date that goes along with this launch date. I just want to emphasize that nobody should get too excited about that date. We have to have a lot of conditions that are just right before we bring the Starliner home, and we're going to wait till the conditions are right and we've accomplished the test objectives before we do that. So we may see, some additional time elapse before we actually bring them home. But the reason we'll be doing that is to make sure we gather all the data we need to gather and to make sure that it's the right day to bring Butch and Suni back to Earth. And now I want to turn it over to Steve Stitch, the Commercial Crew Program Manager.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. It's great to be here today. It's great to see so much interest, and boy, what a heck of a day it was today. So proud of our entire team who've worked so long to get Starliner to this point. Congrats to the ULA team, United Launch Alliance, Tori and his team. You know, the Atlas did a great job today getting Starliner, Butch and Suni on orbit. It's a very smooth ride. Congrats to Mark and his team for all the great work to get the vehicle ready, operating the vehicle, getting it ready, and thanks to Joel as well on the space station program, for supporting us. And we got some pretty good objectives to do when we get to the station in about 24 hours from launch. Today was just a great countdown. It was nice to get into a countdown again. The weather was very good, probably as good as you could ever ask for in Florida. We got through the countdown. We checked the manifold 2 port doghouse helium leak. That was right where we left it when we had the countdown on June 1st. No change in the leak rate at all. It was about half of what we had experienced back on the May 6th attempt. So that's going to be very manageable on orbit. All the other manifolds are doing really well. The ULA system, the ground system did a phenomenal job. Clicked through the countdown, very smooth countdown all the way through. And then, of course, we got the vehicle launched in a very smooth ascent. The rocket did a great job. We did a couple burns today already. The first burn, called the Orbital Insertion burn, about 31 minutes after launch, with 4 of the orbital maneuvering and control thrusters. That burn went well, and we did a phasing burn about 12:07 Eastern time, and that went great as well. The only thing that we are watching a little bit is, we use a system called a sublimator to provide cooling during the launch phase and during the landing phase. And what that does is it creates a block of ice, essentially, and then that ice, as heat is passed into that ice block, that ice, a little thin layer of it, turns into a vapor, and that rejects heat away. We used a little bit more water than we expected during the ascent. We have a backup system where we can go ahead and refill the sublimator tank. It was good to get this data for this flight and understand it. The team let that sublimator run a little longer to collect some data. Once we got on orbit, we handed over to the radiator system for cooling. That's in the service module. That system is doing well. And so for the rest of the day, really it's about checking the spacecraft out. We will check out the NASA docking system and extend that ring and check it out today. We'll check out the rendezvous sensor system that will be used tomorrow for the rendezvous. Really important system. We'll get that checked out. And then we'll check out there's a camera that Butch and Suni will use to monitor the approach to station. Tomorrow we'll check that system out. And then there's a whole host of other checkouts that we'll do today, some what we call operational checkouts to manually fly Starliner. So Butch and Suni will maneuver to an attitude for communications. They'll maneuver to an attitude to charge the batteries and practice doing that. They'll check out some of the hand controllers and the rotational hand controller and the translational hand controllers that we have. So it's really a big checkout day, and really the purpose of this is to learn all we can about Starliner. As Ken said, the major objective really is to get into crew rotation flights with this flight. So we're all set up for docking tomorrow. 12:15 Eastern is the docking time. We're looking forward to that, and we'll keep watching the vehicle. Today is a big step, but it's one step of many steps in this flight test. We'll take it one day at a time. Thanks for your interest, and I'll turn it over to my good colleague, Joel Montalbano.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for joining us today. A historic day, an awesome launch. A huge congratulations to the Commercial Crew Program, the International Space Station Program, the Boeing team, United Launch Alliance, our international partners, and everybody who's been involved in this mission. Just a beautiful launch, and we look forward to an outstanding mission. As Steve said, we'll be docking tomorrow just after noon Eastern Time, 12:15. We'll start integrated ops with the International Space Station around 9 a.m. Eastern Time. This vehicle will dock to the forward port on the International Space Station. And as you heard from Steve and Ken, the real main purpose is to check out the vehicles. So the prime focus of Suni and Butch when they're on board the International Space Station is to check out the vehicle. As they have time available, we have some space station tasks for them to do. But just an awesome way to start the summer. You know, we continue to be busy. We just had a progress docking this past Saturday. We got a number of spacewalks coming up in the month of June. We have 3 spacewalks, U.S. spacewalks scheduled for the team, and the teams are working forward and looking forward to that and working towards those activities. Right before I left here, I sent a note to the International Space Station team, and I said, hey, turn the porch light on, print out the Wi-Fi password, and set the table for 2 more for dinner. So we got a couple people coming to visit, and that's just an awesome mission. So thank you for your interest in human spaceflight. Our goal is to get 2 crewed vehicles delivering to the International Space Station, and this puts us one step closer. With that, I'll hand it over to Mark.
All right. Thanks, Joel. Well, thanks, everybody, for being here and really participating in such a great day. I have been getting just a barrage of texts and emails and congratulations, and I can't tell you how good that feels for our Starliner team to see so much support out there. So we really appreciate that. We talked earlier about the tens of thousands of parts that have to work on the spacecraft, on the launch vehicle, and on the ground, and even the weather has to work for us. And today it all lined up, and we had just a really perfect countdown and launch. Really want to thank our team, our Boeing team, NASA, ULA, and all our suppliers. There's suppliers all across the country that didn't get to be here today, but I know they're watching, and I know that they're really proud of their hardware and what we accomplished. And of course, above all, Suni and Butch, because they really put so much into this to get us to this point and then get to execute this mission. They really are part of our family. You know, a lot of people say I need to smile more, and I'm smiling, believe me. But it's a little bit of controlled emotion because there's a lot of phases of this mission, and we just completed the first one. You know, pre-launch and launch is just the first part of this. We now have to get to ISS. We have to dock. We have to do docking ops. We have to undock. We have to do re-entry, and we have to land. So each one of those phases we're going to really pay very, very close attention to. And our team is really focused on that. So, you know, that as we go through each piece of the mission, there's flight test objectives that we're going to go accomplish, and we've already started that. And Steve talked about a couple that we have in front of us to get to docking, and that's where our team is really going to be focused. This is a test flight. We've talked about this a number of times, and we're going to probably experience a few things that we got to go look into. And we'll do that, and we'll talk to you about them as time goes on. But we're going to learn from this, and we're going to have a great experience. We're on orbit with Butch and Suni, and it's been a long time coming, and we're really, really proud of the team that got us here. Again, thanks to everyone for participating in this and getting us to this point. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Tori.
Thank you. Well, as you all know, this is our first time, and the bird made us work for it a little bit. Today we had a very quiet count, a dead nominal flyout, and I'm not allowed to release our orbital insertion accuracy bullseye yet because it's preliminary, but that might be the best one we've ever done. After we separated, Administrator Nelson and Pam Milroy turned to me and said, does this feel any different, Tori? Yesterday I knew that I have come, you know, I'm coming up on 450 personal launches. Pretty sure I'd seen everything. But I have to tell you, there is absolutely nothing like this. And we are very, very proud to join this human spaceflight community. And I also have to acknowledge the very important contribution of Tony, because she showed me this morning that today, for the first time in this sequence, she had worn her lucky astronaut earrings, and then look at the result. So thank you very much. Proud to be with you all.
Thank you all for those opening remarks. We're now going to open up the floor to questions to media here in the room and over the phone. As a reminder for those joining over the phone, you may press *1 to ask a question. Let's start here in the room with Joey Roulette right there.
Thanks, Joey Roulette with Reuters. For Steve, you said you guys aren't tracking anything right now. Was the launch and deployment up until right now completely perfect? Did everything look fine besides the single thing you mentioned, or did anything happen that was off nominal? And for Mark Nappy, this obviously is a crucial moment for Boeing, and the mission's not over yet. But if you can speak a little bit to the broader kind of goals that the Starliner program plays for the company, if everything goes as planned, what does that mean for the company, and how do you guys move forward from that? Thanks.
Yeah, so far we're really not tracking hardly anything. There was one temperature sensor that was a little bit showing a little warmer than the other sensor in the cabin, so it's near a light. So the team basically disabled that sensor from providing feedback. That was about the only thing that the team worked. And then again, the sublimator usage, the water usage. Water in space, if anybody followed the space shuttle program years ago, we used something called a flash evaporator system, where we flashed water into space to take heat away from the coolant loops. And that was a problematic system that would freeze up and have funny. So anytime you use a system with water in space and you've got ice and liquid and then the vapor of steam, it's very tricky. So I think we're going to learn a little bit about that system. We have this refill capability we'll use to fill the system back up before we come home and land. But other than that, so far the vehicle's been doing well. And really the purpose of these checkouts is to understand the vehicle better and then we'll look at the data in real time. We'll have a review every day of the spacecraft. We'll have one tomorrow when we get back to Houston. But so far, the vehicle's doing great.
Means a lot to us, and the program means a lot to Boeing. My boss was here today, my boss's boss was here today, and my boss's boss's boss was here today. So obviously it means a ton to us. This is the first step, of the mission. I said we got to go through these phases, and then when we get back, it's about certification. It's finishing up the certification so that we can be certified for the Starliner 1 mission, and it's getting that hardware ready for the Starliner 1 mission, and then getting a spot in the manifest with Joel and Dana and Steve on ISS for that Starliner mission. So that's really our focus for the next year is to get those things behind us.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and take this lady right here in the second row, right up front.
Hi there. Kristen Fisher with CNN. Big congratulations to everyone on a successful launch. Mark, a question for you and one for Joel, I believe. Mark, so much has been made of the competition between SpaceX and Boeing over the last decade or so. I'm curious how you view that competition over the last 10 years. Elon Musk sending his congratulations to the entire team. How would you describe that competition? And then for Joel, if we could just get an update on when that faulty pump on board the ISS will actually be replaced, how long that would take. Thanks.
I think you guys think it's a competition. We don't see it as a competition. We've got two providers that are going up to the International Space Station, and SpaceX is up there, and we're up there now as well. So this is something that NASA has planned, and we've accomplished it. And of course, that next step is certification. I saw the tweet. That's awesome. And I sit on my front porch and I watch every SpaceX mission, and I root for them too. This is something that's great for the entire country.
And on the pump change out, we're going to get to that as soon as we can. My hope is we get to it this week. If not, it'll be early next week.
Thank you. We'll go right here, up front.
Thanks, Tony. Congratulations, everyone. This is James from Channel 6. I'd like to start with Mark 2, and maybe if Steve, Ken, and Mr. Administrator would like to chime in. As excited as you are, Mark, good to see you smile. I know that you might have a message in the back of your mind, perhaps, for the harshest critics of Starliner's program. Is there anything, I know you're focused on the mission at hand, but what would you like to say to those who may have even called for the cancellation of the program after all the delays? There are those who thought Butch and Suni would never fly. Thank you.
We talked to our team a lot about just ignoring a lot of the stuff that you read. We focus on the positive. We focus on the accomplishments, and we learn from the setbacks that we've had. It's been this way in human spaceflight my entire career. Steve talked in the last press conference where he's got 37 or 38 years, I think. I started thinking I've got 39. It's not a competition, but I got 39 years.
I'll try to beat you.
And I think about, over the years, how many bad headlines I've read about the shuttle program, International Space Station. And then I look back at those programs and look at how successful they were. We had an incredible run with the space shuttle, and arguably we put the most incredible, fantastic engineering feat ever with assembling the International Space Station in space. And someday we're going to be looking back at this program the same way.
And I'll add a little bit to that question. I got a lot of texts today too from a lot of people that I work with who were former shuttle employees. I got texts from the SpaceX community. I got texts from a broad range of people, all working in human spaceflight. I think the text to me meant a heck of a lot because they know how hard it is, right? I think we sometimes don't talk about the challenges of getting to flight. I look back 4 years ago at Demo 2 and the challenges of getting to that flight. We had to redesign the parachute system on Dragon before that flight in the year before. We redesigned the propulsion system before. Starliner has had, every development program has challenges on getting there. Space Shuttle had challenges. It was behind schedule on launching. every single program, I think, it's just so hard to put all the pieces together. As Mark said, they all have to work as planned. You qualify them, you test them, and then you learn about them and you fly them in space. And so we've stood side by side with Boeing, working hard. We need 2 providers. We need 2 space transportation systems. It's hugely important to us. I think the whole community knows that, and it's just a tough endeavor to get to flight. And huge kudos to the entire team for getting there today. The administrator talked about perseverance, hard work, dedication. That's what I see from our team every single day. I wish I could explain it here, but these people are working long hours and figuring out ways to solve problems, whether it's a Boeing employee, a NASA employee, United Launch Alliance employee. So it's just great to be part of the team. You're hot.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that, folks like to judge early, and I would exercise caution doing that. You really don't know how great a program is until after it's finished. That's what I've seen with airplane programs and other aerospace programs through the years. It's also important to remember that we want more than one provider. It's really important to us, not just for ISS to have redundancy there, but we're trying to develop a new economy in low Earth orbit. And to do that, we want to have a field with multiple competitors. We'd like to see 3, 4 someday, right? And it starts by developing 2. Sorry to cut you off, boss.
Not at all. Not at all. He's the real deal. Former space commander. The overall answer to your question is space is hard. And you better not mess it up by not going when you've tried out everything and you know that it is as safe as possible when you put a human on board. And sometimes that takes time. And the proof's in the pudding. Look what we've been through in all of the different space programs of NASA from the very get-go. And sometimes they were very painful. And when we didn't get it right, because mistakes were made, the entire country suffered. So my hat's off to the team here. They waited until they got it right. As Joel said, we've still got some to come. Steve said this too, because this is the first time that the spacecraft that doesn't have wheels, like the shuttle did, is going to land on land. And it's going to come down in the Utah desert as the primary site. And so this is a whole new adaptation. So they waited until it was right.
Thank you. Well, we'll take it right here up front.
Yusuke Tomiyama, The Yomiuri Shimbun, Japanese Daily. My question is for Senator Nelson. You mentioned further lunar exploration in your first remarks, so I'd like to ask you, apart from Starliner, China's lunar probe successfully collected samples from far-side moon surface for the first time. So what do you think on this achievement, and do you have any plan to collaborate with China for science research of these samples? Thank you.
Did you specifically ask at first about Chang'e 6 that landed on the far side of the moon? Okay. Well, my congratulations to the Chinese space program. I have said over and over that they have a very good program. They have made lots of progress in the last 10 years. I would like very much, and have said this publicly many times, for them to be more transparent, more open, less secretive. And yes, we need to cooperate on things. The one thing that we did cooperate on was deconfliction in Mars orbit. But there are plenty of other opportunities for deconfliction and cooperation. And I would welcome that. But of course, today and I respect your question. Today is about the Boeing Starliner.
All right, we're going to take some questions over the phone. First up, we have Michael Sheets with CNBC.
Hi, everybody. I believe my question is best answered by either Steve or Mark, but for the 25 hours after launch, we're not going to have onboard live views or even delayed views of the crew like we've seen with Dragon, even going back to using TDRS before. So curious as to why that is. If there are onboard cameras, is this a matter of cost that we can't bring this feed back down until the International Space Station is reached by Starliner? Appreciate any clarification here.
Yeah, we do have a camera on board, a system called Mustang. It is not active for live feed during flight, but once we do get to station, we'll get feed, and of course when we get back down, we'll be able to get all the video. We are looking at being able to provide live feed in flight, but that won't be for a couple of flights.
All right. Next up, we have Micah Maidenberg with the Wall Street Journal.
Hi, thank you so much. Mark and Steve, is it possible to say how many out of the, I believe it's 87 test flight objectives are already kind of crossed off, given where the mission is just right now? And could you describe just what are one or two of the more higher risk moments from here on out? Thanks so much.
It certainly is possible to cross off all the flight test objectives, but I don't have those numbers in front of me. But I can kind of give you a little bit of a summary of what they look like. There's a little bit of manual flying that would like Butch and Suni to do with the hand controllers. That'll happen here in the next day. And then there's a lot of, I'll call them ergonomic types of flight test objectives. How do the seats fit? How do the suits work? How do the displays look? And and there's numbers that are associated with all those things that I just rattled off that add up into the 87. And then of course when we get close to docking, we'll do some more. And when we get docked, there's additional ones as simple as how does the cargo come out and how does the cargo go back in. Those are the types of flight test objectives that will be satisfying. Steve?
Yeah, I think Mark said it well. We don't have the exact number today because they're happening as we speak here. Maybe we could talk a little bit about what we've accomplished after we dock. The big things coming up. Obviously, docking is a high interest event when you're bringing two vehicles close to each other, like Starliner as it approaches the forward port of station. That's a huge, big event for us. A very integrated event between the Starliner flight control team and the International Space Station flight control team. And then, once we get docked, we have a big objective to demonstrate what we call safe haven. So that's a demonstration where we have the crew go into Starliner and use only the Starliner assets. If something were to happen on station, we have this capability in both Dragon and very soon Starliner. We'll demonstrate that. And then at the end, obviously, the deorbit and landing are huge events that we'll continue to learn a lot about. I would say one thing, about the spacecraft is this is the first time with a crew on board. So first time that the life support system is operating today. We've tested it on the ground. It worked great, but we're learning a little bit about that as well. Huge important objective for the flight as well.
Thanks. We're going to take one more question over the phone before we come back to the room. We have Andrea Leinfelder with the Houston Chronicle.
Hi, congrats on the launch today. Understanding that these could change, can you give me the dates you expect Starliner will undock from the station, and then the date and location you're targeting for landing? Thank you.
Yeah, we have a number of landing opportunities. The first one would be the earliest would be June 14th. We would undock around 3:17 in the morning. That would be Central Time. With a landing around 8:38 Central Time. That would be at White Sands Space Harbor. What we really want to do is kind of look at the overall mission as it's going, and then Joel has some activities on the space station, and so we may adjust that date a little bit to accomplish some International Space Station activities. There's nothing magic about that date. A few days later, we have another set of opportunities as well. So we'll take a little time once we get docked, work with Joel and his team. He talks about some spacewalks that they would like to do as well, and so we'll work out the choreography of all those different events. But right now we're really focused on Starliner and docking tomorrow.
All right, we'll take some questions here in the room. We'll go to Ken Kramer.
Hi, thank you. Congratulations to everybody. It was spectacular to see that after so many years and hard work. So, Ken Kramer, Space Up Close, right? So, Tori, I want to follow up on a question I asked you at the end of the last briefing. You mentioned that, you don't do the RAN steering, and it's a unique orbit, suborbital, actually, that you deliver it to. So, I guess, and for safety reasons. So I'm kind of curious, why don't you use a third SRB to get to orbital velocity?
Oh, sure. Great question. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, RAN steering, right ascension ascending node, is a guidance technique that allows one, if you have enough energy and the guidance algorithms to pull it off, to give you a larger launch window when you're going to a target like the International Space Station, which is an intercept target, because there is only one perfect instantaneous moment to go for the least energy. That technique allows you to go early or go late, and then without wasting very much energy, re-intersect onto that ideal path. We don't do that here because it would not benefit safety, and we don't energy for it. We certainly could put a third booster on, third solid, and go orbital, but the whole idea behind this trajectory is that there are no blackout periods all along its path where the G-forces would be too great in an emergency abort separation of the capsule for the astronauts to be uninjured, and at the end of that journey we're just short of orbital velocity, so that if, God forbid, the propulsion system on the wonderful Starliner did not function properly, they would still get a free return safely to the Earth. So it's all about crew safety. It's really not about performance. And that gives us every possible chance to make sure the crew is safe throughout that trajectory. That causes us to fly low and flat for us, which is why we have an extra RL-10, because you need more thrust to do that. Does that make sense?
Well, I still don't understand why the third SRB doesn't change the situation.
We could put a third SRB and we could go orbital, but then at that point, if we didn't have propulsion on the capsule, they could not free return. They'd be stuck in orbit until they naturally decayed, which might take a while.
I think you'd have to look at what does that do to your acceleration profile in first stage. If you had a third solid rocket motor on the side, that's going to get you going a little faster in that first stage. And then we'd have to go look at, as Tori said, what we want to have is if anything happens to the rocket, essentially the starting point for the capsule trajectory is where the rocket is. And so you have to look at the Gs and the heating and the heat shield on the way on the other side. So it's all optimized for the two solid rocket motors, for crew safety for aborts, and then you essentially have almost a free return back to even Edwards Air Force Base should we not be able to do any of the burns. There's a small burn you could do to get to Edwards, and then on the second orbit also you could go to Edwards Air Force Base as a safe landing, as a contingency site. So.
Thank you. We'll bring it over here to this gentleman.
Hi, thank you. Sawyer Rosenstein, NSF. I guess for Joel or Mark, kind of continuing off the other question there, what would be some of the test objectives that might influence whether or not you go beyond the week docked to the ISS? Is there anything in particular that would benefit from that extended time, or that would require extended time that you could do if you stay docked?
To me, you got to check out the system and see what the system gives you, right? And so if we see something that wasn't as expected, and we're like, hey, another day would allow some extra time to go look at that system, then we'd stay. I mean, there's not a specific list of, hey, these 10 things are going to require more time. It's more watch the system, see how it operates, and if it requires more time, we have more time.
Thank you. We'll toss it to Lauren Grush.
Lauren Grush with Bloomberg. I think my question is for Steve or for Mark. You mentioned that you weren't really working any issues, but I am curious how this flight is comparing to the experience of the uncrewed test flight that you had and the issues that were experienced during that mission. Do you feel confident that those problems have been resolved based on what you're seeing with this flight?
I can start off. Obviously on Orbit Flight Test 2, the uncrewed flight. We saw some OMAC thrusters that failed off during the orbit insertion burn. Today, that first burn, I was really excited to watch it. I think it was like about 72 meters per second. I'm an old trajectory guy, so I kind of like burns. But all 4 OMACs fired in each doghouse. The control was just perfect. Those did really well. I didn't get to see the second maneuver, which was the phasing burn, but that went really well. So we had a couple things, happen early on that we've seemed to gotten past with. I know Mark's talked about, we think the leading cause of those failures was a little contamination in some of the propellant lines in those doghouses that they failed off. It was all in the same doghouse, actually. So far, the OMAC burns, these are pretty good-sized thrusters, 1,500 pounds of thrust. Those have gone really well, and I'll see if Mark has anything to add.
Yeah, we had our cooling system had a little bit of a freeze up on OFT2. We had worked on that by removing some filters so that it would operate a little bit more smoothly. Of course, we didn't have crew on OFT2, so that contributed to the problem. There wasn't as much heat in the crew module. And this time, it appears everything's working fine, so I think we have that problem licked.
Thank you. We're going to go back to the phone. We have Mike Wall with Space.com.
Thank you all for doing this. And yeah, I'd just like to say congratulations on a successful launch and a successful mission so far. Just a quick question, maybe for Mark or for Steve. Have you heard much from Suni and Butch about Starliner and like how it's handling and what are their thoughts about the spacecraft so far?
Steve, I haven't heard anything at all. I've been busy preparing for this and a little bit of celebration.
Yeah, I have not either. I know they were going to call down, I talked about some of the things they were going to do, some of the manual maneuvers in the hand controller checkout, rotational hand controller, and the translation hand controller, and they were going to call down to the ground, I think probably about right now during this event, and so we haven't really heard too much from them. They've been really focused on clicking through a bunch of objectives, getting the spacecraft set up for orbit, doing the maneuvers we talked about, and doing the checkout. So I don't know, but we'll get some information from them later today.
Next up, we have Issam Ahmed with AFP.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. First of all, for Steve, I was wondering if you could reflect a little bit on the fact that you've been in this your job for so long now, and to see this day finally come. Could you reflect a little bit on what that means to you? And for Ken specifically, I think you mentioned earlier in the call that you might like to expand these commercial providers to 3 or 4. Could you sort of go into further details about what you meant by that? Because I hadn't heard about that before. Oh, and finally for Steve, if I could sneak in one more. Regarding the sublimator, you're pretty confident that you'll have enough water backup for the landing? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll take the first question. I just felt really proud today of the team. Having been with the team for 8.5 years now as the deputy program manager, I see the hard work of the team and just felt, a sense of accomplishment from watching the team work so hard, of getting this first step done, of getting Butch and Suni on orbit, getting a couple burns executed. It was a bit of an emotional time for me because you just see how hard people work, and they put their blood, sweat, and tears into it every day of their life. Sometimes their families, suffer as they work nights and weekends on analyses or resolving challenges, and just super proud of the entire team. When I say team, I talk about the NASA team, the Boeing team, United Launch Alliance team, the Space Station Program team, and as Mark mentioned, we get to work with a lot of suppliers as well on the NASA side. These people are committed to human spaceflight. They know how hard it is. They know what it takes, and I was just super proud of the team.
Yeah, when it comes to the additional providers, We work with other providers in addition to Boeing and SpaceX and the Dragon and Starliner teams to help them as they're thinking about someday building crew vehicles or converting their vehicles to crew. But we don't have any procurement in place to do that, nothing where we're going out trying to buy additional services at this point. But I would love to see the low Earth orbit economy grow so much that we need all those vehicles, right? So that was behind my statement is I would like to see that growth in low Earth orbit so that we see this vibrant activity with lots of different launches with lots of different vehicles someday.
I think there was a second question I failed to answer on the sublimator. There is a refill kit, and it's able to refill the tank. Essentially, you carry up some spare water, and there's a connector hose that hooks up to the system, and that should provide all the water we need for the landing. So.
Thank you both. We'll now head back to the room. We have Manuel Masanti over here.
Thank you, Tony. Manuel Masanti, Exploración Espacial. Question for Mark. I understand that Boeing has 2 operative capsules right now, Calypso in orbit and another one preparing for Starliner 1. Do you have the intention of having more of them? Like a third one is being in production, or with 2 is fine for the operational missions? Thank you.
For the flight rate that we have right now, flying once a year, 1 is plenty. But to fly twice a year, which is a request from NASA on our contract, we need 2 capsules, so to turn them every 6 months. So 2 is sufficient for what is in the plan. If, like Ken talked, if there becomes a low Earth orbit market where there's additional International Space Stations, additional flights, then that would drive additional vehicles.
Thank you. We'll now go to this gentleman up front here.
Yes, hi, Bert Dicht from the National Space Society. I'd like to ask a question to Tori. You mentioned this is your first crewed launch of a spacecraft, and obviously you'll be going through your processes and procedures as you prepare for the next one, but any initial impressions about everything in terms of this flight?
Yes. Well, I'll just say that, we had, as you know, 2 scrubs that preceded this, and they were routine issues that, we'll be able to take corrective actions for and be less exposed to that kind of issue going forward. So it gives us a little bit more focus on launching on time as well as mission success. I was proud of my team that they took no shortcuts, and throughout this process we kept focused on Suni and Butch because that is a more precious payload than we have ever flown before. So yes, like the Starliner team, like the NASA team, every mission is followed by, a hot wash and lessons learned and improvements going forward.
Thank you, Tori. Next up, we have this lady right here up front.
Gina Sinceri, ABC News. I'm not sure who would know the answer to this. Did Butch and Suni say anything on the ride up to you or any response?
Sorry, who was the question for?
Did Butch and Suni say anything? Is that what your question?
Right. Did you get any feedback from them on the experience going up?
I didn't copy anything on the comm loops. I mean, they were professional test pilots on the way up, looking at the various abort boundaries and looking at the systems. And, you could tell they were excited and ready to go. We heard their remarks before they lifted off. And so, no, I don't think they said much. I can imagine their faces when they got in orbit and, in zero-G, and just imagine how excited they were congratulating each other to be in space. And after participation in this whole development of Starliner. So.
My guess is they never lost their smile.
Yeah.
They did congratulate Tori for becoming part of the Human Spaceflight Club, which I think we need to cut his tie or something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll now go back to the phone. We have David Denault with About Space Today.
Good afternoon. And I guess it's not maybe a coincidence that both the administrator and the associate administrator are sitting next to each other. But gentlemen, each of you had a unique experience. STS-61C and STS-73, long delays. how do you put yourself in like Butch and Suni and all of their delays? What was that like?
Okay, well, first I'll say that the administrator and he actually has the record because he did it first, but they scrubbed 6 times on his launch, and on one of my launches we scrubbed 6 times. So Butch and Suni, they didn't come anywhere close to that, right? They were in quarantine probably longer than I was because of the distance between their scrubs. But what I found with each one of my scrubs was we were a little more relaxed, a little more prepared, and we got a little more rested, and we were really good at strapping in by the time we got a few under our belt. I don't know. What about you, sir?
Same thing. At least the weather was not a concern for the 3 times on Starliner. The weather certainly played a big part with regard to some of our scrubs. So, yeah, it gets old hat when you strap in, and it's just another day at the ranch.
Thank you. We can now take one more in the room. We'll go to Will Robinson-Smith right there.
Thank you, Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now. Appreciate the time and congratulations again. Question for either Ken or Steve. Assuming that everything goes well with the rest of this mission, you get back, you get through the data, and you press on to Starliner 1 next spring, has a decision been made on the seat swap agreement with Roscosmos and their cosmonaut and how that flight situation will work in 2025? Thanks.
Well, on the seat swap agreement, I'll talk about that, and Steve can talk about the other part. Our Russian colleagues want to get more data and see how this mission goes, and then we'll talk with them. They've said previously that they want to see 3 crewed flights before they're ready to do a seat swap, so we need to work through that with them, and Joel might have something to add there. He's been working that when he was the ISS program manager.
Yep, we already have 1 seat on the Dragon mission, but the plan is to get to do the crew swap on both vehicles as quickly as we can. And so, as Ken said, we'll be watching this mission, taking lessons learned, and then as quickly as we can, we're going to be putting that in place.
Yeah, and our goal is to, once we get the flight back, get Butch and Suni back landed safely, evaluate the data, complete the certification that Mark's talked about, and then, we'll get Starliner in the rotation as soon as we can.
Thank you. We have time for one more question here in the room. All right, we'll go to Jeff Faust right there.
Jeff Faust of Space News. Probably for Steve or Mark, just to follow up on an earlier question about video from inside the capsule. How long after Starliner gets to the station will you be able to bring back some of that video? I think there's a lot of interest and maybe even expectation to see what it's like inside Starliner.
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm not sure, Jeff. I know we'll have to downlink the data. It's all recorded on board Starliner, and then I assume we'll get it down within a day or so of docking. But I don't know the details of that, so I apologize.
We'll make sure to get that information for you, Jeff. Thank you all to our panelists, and thank you to all the media. That's all the time we have for today, but we want to thank everyone for taking the time to ask their questions and for our panelists for answering them. Starliner is scheduled to dock to the forward-facing port of the station's Harmony module tomorrow, June 6th at approximately 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. You can follow along starting at 9:30 a.m. on NASA Plus, the NASA app, and YouTube. And here's a look at the highlights of this historic day. Thank you, and go NASA, go Boeing, and go CFT.
Here are the astronauts, Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Suni Williams, as you can see, suiting up for their mission into the history books.
This is a tradition. The whole idea here is to lose to the chief.
Out of the suit-up room, Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Suni Williams walking to an elevator at the end of the hallway. Our CFT crew taking their first steps outside, now en route to Launch Pad 41.
Crew transport vehicle is into the pad.
Butch and Suni arriving on level 12.
Last look at planet Earth for a while, saying hi to us. Hi, Suni.
Butch getting in there.
Gotten strapped into their seats here.
Hatch closure complete. Roger.
3, 2, 1, ignition.
liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V, carrying 2 American heroes, drawing a line to the stars for all of us.
Commander Butch Wilmore, they're calling down to Mission Control here in Houston that the spacecraft has begun rolling into the right attitude for its ascent, and Guidance Navigation and Control Officer here in the room seeing good data on that.
Everything continuing to go smoothly now, over 2.5 hours into today's mission of the Starliner flight. Next major milestone that we are looking ahead towards are the far field piloting checkouts that we've been discussing.
And Suni, for that tablet that you have plugged into the charger, we'd like you to unplug it and plug it back in, and tell us if the tablet's telling you it's receiving a charge.
All right, she unplugged it and she's plugged it back in. And we've got the little plug symbol that says it's receiving charge.
All right, good news. We'll watch that one for a little bit, then we'll check back on it.
Outstanding.
And Butch and Suni doing some IT troubleshooting the same way we do on Earth with unplugging it and plugging it back in. But they've confirmed that they've got good charge on the tablet they've got plugged in. Looking forward a little bit, talking about the far-field demos that are going to be manually flown by the crew. We've got a handful, some RHC and THC checkout, comm maneuvers coming up, low power mode recovery, and some manual thrust align and tail to sun maneuver back and forth.
Last thing on the timeline, Starliner, we are ready to accept the bold demo, ready for the first block of PAO words, and then the PMCs, we talked about at a handover, those are optional. You guys just let us know if you want them.
All right, Houston, we copy. We've got numbers for the bold. What are you looking for specifically? And yeah, we'll take a PMC. Why not?
All right, Roger. We'll plan on keeping it. And stand by for bold. All right, Butch, we'll take the deorbit TIGs and the landing sites that you see.
Okay, copy. Stand by.
All right, Neil, ready to copy?
We're ready.
Okay, orbit 16, 0606, 158, 16, 12, 00, Wilcox, ascending left.
Checking. And Suni, just verifying it was 16, 11, 58.
Well, we have 16, 12, 00. Pretty close.
All right. Yeah, copy. That's good. Thanks for the test.
Okay, I've got 3 other sites, but is that all you want?
Yeah, just that one for the OCC there.
Okay, sounds good.
And those calls from NASA astronaut Suni Williams to the ground, discussing a variety of coordinates should a landing need to take place. We are not tracking anything like that, but this is all part of that certification process. Here on the ground, our FIDOs, our Flight Dynamic Officer, will take those numbers, ensure that everything is tracking well and properly for the trajectory of Starliner. Everything continuing to go smoothly now, 2 hours and 43 minutes into today's flight.
Starliner Houston, we're going to be go for you to start the far-field piloting checkouts now, and we'll pick up the PAO later. We need the lighting for the checkout.
Okay, we like it.
And the team on the ground verifying lighting conditions look good ahead of those far field piloting checkouts, which will begin here momentarily.
And Houston, we assume you got Mustang activated.
Yep.
And we are awaiting the beginning of the manual piloting far field demo. This demo ensures that the crew could provide attitude maneuvering and translational control capability manually. While we do not expect this, it is part of the certification process for Starliner. One of the requirements for this checkout is that it occurs in daylight, which the crew currently is in a daylight orbit at the moment. We expect this checkout to take about 2 hours. And there's a variety of different manual piloting techniques that they will utilize as part of that certification. Part of it will also include using a stopwatch to take measure of where Starliner is at and ensure it is tracking as expected. As we await the start of these far-field piloting checkouts, one of the first steps that the crew will do is start up the center line camera. If you've been following along, you may be aware that both NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams are test pilots, so this is a great opportunity for them to utilize those skills as they really put Starliner through its paces as part of these far-field piloting checkouts. Another aspect of these manual piloting checkouts that will take place, you might hear the call of something along the lines of bad SIGI recovery demo. Again, as part of these checkouts, you might hear the call bad SIGI or SIGI in recovery mode. That SIGI is the Space Integrated GPS Inertial Navigation System, essentially the GPS that Starliner utilizes to track its location. So as part of these manual piloting checkouts, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams will put Starliner through its paces to ensure that they could recover should something have gone wrong with that SIGI system. Again, this is all part of the certification process of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft. Other checkouts that they'll do as part of the manual piloting checkouts include pointing the spacecraft tail to sun in an orientation to ensure that Starliner can get power from its solar arrays.
And Starliner Houston, just touching base with you on the far field checkout for making sure that the cameras are set up and we're ready to go.
As you would expect, Houston, the difficulty is getting tied into the Wi-Fi, just like on every other system you've ever tried to tie into. But we have finally got it. So that part is a success. And we're ready to, for 1.2, is moding to sequence 31.
Okay, yeah, and just for my own sake, Wi-Fi to the camera, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it's camera, and also you've got to have the right Wi-Fi so you can zoom via the tablet, all of that.
Yeah, okay, copy that. We'll talk that a little bit later. Yeah, we're ready for 1.2.
And NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore confirming that the camera is set up and in the right configuration ahead of those crew manual piloting checkouts that should be underway here momentarily.
All right, here comes sequence 21, or 31.
Roger.
Commander Butch Wilmore, switching Starliner to flight plan sequence 31. This flight sequence is a contingency coast tail to sun. It's going to be the start of their manual flying parameters, proving their ability to manually pilot the vehicle from a contingency state. A contingency maneuver, contingency plan is if the vehicle is in an off-nominal state. For example, after an emergency or during a time where they need to identify a problem on the vehicle, they'd go to that sequence, and the crew's going to work their way flying from that sequence to a handful of other attitudes and positions per the flight test specifications.
All right, Houston, ready for pulse hold?
Ready.
And Commander Butch Wilmore does now have control of the spacecraft and is conducting those manual piloting checkouts.
The first maneuver that Butch Wilmore will be making is flying nose to Earth to get a good communication with the satellites should they be moving from an out of nominal orientation to one that they can use to help diagnose the problem with the ground.
And if you are just joining us today, we are continuing to provide live coverage following the liftoff of NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams from Florida at 9:52 a.m. Central Time this morning. At this time, the crew, namely the commander, Butch Wilmore, has command of this spacecraft as he works through far-field piloting checkouts. These checkouts are in anticipation of Starliner certification, and he is working to point the spacecraft nadir and select the aft antenna, essentially just pointing the spacecraft in the proper configuration so that they would have the best possible communications if required for manual piloting. Again, this is not something that we expect. However, it is part of the certification process as Starliner is a fully autonomous vehicle.
The Starliner saw the RHC caution go into and out of alarm. Look, transient looks like you're still flying. No action, obviously. Just continue to fly. We're taking a look at it.
Okay, yeah, we're in our first attitude now.
Roger.
All right, we're going manual antennas.
Roger.
Butch Wilmore is switching Starliner's antenna selection, which is normally done automatically based off the scheduled use of, or schedule for the teeter satellites that Starliner and ISS share. But since they are making a off-plan maneuver as part of this flight test objective, they're going to manually select which antenna they're using to get communication with mission control.
All right, Houston, we are in the attitude. It looks like we want to hold for 15 minutes. You concur?
Yeah, concur.
All right, we started time.
Starliner, just be advised, we're right on the edge of the bore side of that antenna, and so we'll just expect comm to get a little ratty.
Appreciate the heads up.
As part of this flight test objective, with an off-nominal pointing of Starliner and trying to get communication with the teeter satellites, Capcom calling up to Butch, letting him know that the direction the antenna is pointed is a high bore site, which means the satellite it is pointing at is just at the edge of the cone that the antenna uses to connect to the satellite. During this about 15-minute section of the manual piloting demo, Butch and Suni will be maneuvering Starliner to point it incrementally in different directions to help improve power generation, which means the crew is going to be trying to tilt the solar array as close to the sun as it can get while still maintaining connection with that antenna to the satellite. This will help charge the batteries while they're in this off-nominal orientation. One of the main reasons that the crew is holding this attitude for about 15 minutes is that it mimics what the crew would need to do in this situation to help point Starliner's solar rays at the sun for about 15 minutes, which equals the amount of time that they will be within a nominal solar day, which is when the sun is visible to the crew from when they started the maneuver.
And the crew is in a day pass at this time as they perform that hold for 15 minutes. This is just to have the ideal configuration to assess that power generation in this process.
Houston, we're back with you. We switched over to lower left antenna.
Roger.
Hey, did you hear my other question? Do we really need to keep the centerline camera powered up? We might want to save the battery, we're thinking. Your thoughts?
Yes, semi. Hey, Butch. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit down here. We're going to want the data from the manual Earth pointing demo.
Okay. All right, well, remind me to, I don't think it's got a chip in it for recording.
Okay, yeah, copy that, and just be advised, that's going to be step 2 when you're doing the attitude recovery demo.
Okay.
And big picture here, Butch, we don't need the video recorded, but we think that y'all are going to want it for the centerline camera view of that activity.
Yeah, I got you, thanks.
And hey, be advised, we deactivated the LWIRs here from the ground as a conservative step to make sure that we don't get any stray light into those sensors.
Copy, thank you.
And as part of the far-field piloting checkouts, the crew continues to hold their attitude as part of that 15-minute timer. This is taking place during a day pass to assess power generation for Starliner. As the Starliner crew continues that 15-minute hold, the crew aboard the International Space Station, that crew of 7, is beginning to wrap up their workday here shortly and looking forward to Butch and Suni's arrival tomorrow. We are targeting docking of Starliner to the forward port of Harmony at 11:15 a.m. Central Time tomorrow morning, with a hatch opening to follow around 1 p.m. On board the International Space Station, again, there are currently 7 astronauts and cosmonauts living aboard. Those include Oleg Kononenko.
Houston, back with you on the aft antenna. We show about 1 more minute.
Roger. And concur.
Again, the crew on board Space Station includes Oleg Kononenko, who is the current Space Station commander, who just yesterday surpassed 1,000 days of cumulative time in space. Nikolai Chub from Roscosmos, Tracy Dyson of NASA, Mike Barrett of NASA, Matt Dominic of NASA, Jeanette Epps of NASA, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gurbankin. Again, we are targeting that docking tomorrow morning at 11:15 a.m. Central Time.
All right, Houston, we are ready for point mode auto on the antenna.
We'll take it.
Okay, and we're ready for step 2 if you are.
And we're ready too, Butch. And then also for the centerline camera correction, it was step 3 where that would really come in handy.
Yeah, we figured that out. No problem. Okay, inhibiting SIGI 1.
Roger.
All right, we got no white dot on SIGI 1, and over to you, Houston. Stand by.
All right, stand by. Okay, Butch, we've got the attitude bias in on SIGI 1, so we're ready for you to check on step 2.2.2.
2.2.2, here we go. Okay, we're up to 2.3.
Roger.
During this phase of the manual flight test demonstration, Mission Control uploaded a update to the internal estimate on one of the SIGIs, specifically the...
All right, here we go, inhibiting SIGI 2 and SIGI 3.
We're ready.
The inertial navigation system. The Mission Control sent an update to the inertial navigation system 1 on SIGI 1 to change its estimate to be something worse than normal. What Butch is going to do is only use that single SIGI.
And it's expected.
Affirmative. Okay, we got you up.
Roger.
So, Butch Wilmore's flying Starliner, they purposely gave the inertial navigation system of Starliner.
Be the same, and we'll just expect Radicom while you're maneuvering.
Sounds good.
With Mission Control sending a bad estimate of Starliner's attitude on purpose to the inertial navigation system, Butch is going to take over manual control and orient Starliner to point at the stars to then update that value to go back into normal range.
And on this graphic on your screen, you can see the Starliner spacecraft as it continues to make its way towards the International Space Station and play a little bit of catch-up here. Again, we are targeting that docking at 11:15 a.m. Central Time tomorrow morning. The crew is continuing a series of far-field piloting checkouts to certify Starliner. And this view from inside the white flight control room, which is the Starliner flight control room of the flight director on console during this Orbit 3 shift, Ed Van Cise, as well as the Capcom or capsule communicator, which is the voice you hear communicating to NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. That is Neil Nagata.
All right, Houston, we think we got a pretty decent attitude away from the sun, away from the Earth.
Roger.
Here comes tab 23, line course line.
Roger.
Okay, here comes tab 24.
Ready.
And to just break down a little bit more of what is taking place at this time, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams are completing those far-field piloting checkouts, particularly when it comes to the bad SIGI recovery mode. The SIGI is the Space Integrated GPS Inertial Navigation System, essentially the GPS system on Starliner. So Mission Control Houston did intentionally send a bad command or bad GPS signal to the Starliner spacecraft, and now the crew in that manual piloting mode is working to utilize...
Looks like everything's confirmed up to 2.4.5, and we're going 0.3.
We concur.
They'll utilize the stars around them in order to maintain that proper navigation.
All right, forcing the attitude update into SIGI 1.
Roger. And that looked good.
We agree. Going to point hold.
Roger.
And we'll go tab 23 back to final line.
Roger.
And if you're ready, we'll do the load cal from SMC 2.4.7.
We're ready.
So far during this part of the flight demonstration, Butch Wilmore has reoriented Starliner to point at the stars, and this was after MCC sent a purposefully...
All right, we think we like what we see. If you do, we'll do the tab 26 and force SIGI 1 attitude update.
Looks great down here. We're ready.
Butch Wilmore following up after MCC sent a purposefully bad attitude estimation update to the inertial navigation system, pointing at the stars to get a new estimate, clearing the previous estimate, and now they're having Starliner calculate its new estimated attitude.
All right, we like what we see. We'll go tab 4 and 5 and bring back SIGI 2 and SIGI 3 into enable to your curve.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, Houston. Looks like we're up to step 3, and you've got some steps.
All right, Moose, putting those in work now. I'll let you know when she's done.
Outstanding.
And we're still working on the 3.1 steps, but just be advised, sunset's going to be in about 3 minutes.
Copy.
And Starliner, we're going to go ahead and wait for sunset down here, and then once we're there, we're going to fire up the IRs so you can use them for the plus X align maneuver.
Okay, standing by.